Britain's prisons are full. One of the more controversial ideas suggested to tackle the issue is medication to manage problematic sexual arousal, otherwise known as chemical castration. Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood told Parliament that the MOJ thought the treatment could reduce reoffending amongst people with sexual convictions by 60%, and that they would even look at making it mandatory. But what actually is chemical castration? Well, the word castration might be causing some confusion. It actually has nothing to do with surgical castration. It's also different to the estrogen treatments that were forced on men who've been charged with homosexuality offences as recently as the 1970s, tragically leading to some really grim side effects and in some cases suicide. Usually, today's medication is something called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, a common form of antidepressant which can temporarily reduce an individual's sex drive. In some instances, they might also be prescribed anti-androgens, commonly known as puberty blockers, which block the uptake of testosterone. These medications have been available in prisons for nearly 15 years, and the good news is that there are some signs that they are really helping people's mental health. So, rolling out the medication to other prisons might actually be a good thing. But the evidence is limited. The Ministry of Justice got its numbers from a small study done in 1979, and even more recent studies have not shown conclusively that offering this medication can reduce reoffending. So it's especially hard to see why the government would want to make this treatment mandatory, even if it were legally or ethically possible.
In general, it's one of the fundamental principles of kind of general healthcare law is that no kind of individual medical professional has an obligation to provide a particular intervention to a particular patient, unless it would be negligent not to.
As any expert will tell you, the forces driving people to commit sexual offences are about way more than sexuality. If someone came up for parole and opting for chemical castration was part of their treatment programme, as a psychologist, how would you view that and how would you incorporate that into your judgment about whether they had genuinely reformed?
So if they volunteered into a program of chemical castration, I think you would take that as a protective factor, because it means that they are acknowledging the need for treatment, they're acknowledging their offending behaviour, but it wouldn't be a unique or perfect solution, because sex offending is not just about contact, it's not just about penetration, it's not just about physical arousal. Sex offenders aren't just looking for sex. In fact, arguably, sex offenders are rarely actually looking for sex. That's not often the real goal. There's an awful lot of sex offending which is based around power, control, and coercion.
The uncomfortable truth is we don't know enough about how to rehabilitate individuals who've committed sex offences. The evidence shows that therapy and medication can help, but a fifth of all prisoners in Britain have sexual convictions, a number that is likely to rise in the coming years.
Paedophilia is a recognised mental health condition, and we quite rightly, to protect children at the moment, deal with it as through the criminal justice system. If an offence is committed, by and large, people go into custody, and that's to protect children, which is right. But we're not diminishing the amount of offences being committed. And I think as a society, it might be time for us to take the brave step, taking one step back and say, well, look, we obviously protecting children is first and foremost. But if we want a longer term strategy to actually protect children, rather than just catching people, locking them up and keeping it on a rotation like that, is to look at it and think, well, this is a distinct type of offence on the criminal calendar. And it's one with a very strong element of potentially a mental health problem.
Whatever happens, the government needs to be prepared to invest heavily if it wants to see genuine rehabilitation, and perhaps needs to think a little more outside the box. You can read my full story on Substack. Please send in any questions and suggestions about what I should investigate next.